Hello, everyone.
Sup?
What's up?
Hello.
Dylan,
Yo.
Danny, Johnny, Jesse, as you are all aware by now, hopefully, just had a baby 3 weeks ago now. So he's kind of in the middle of the first month 2 storm, but he'll be back joining us pretty soon. In the meantime, this is episode 31. We got a lot of exciting things to talk about today because I found some dumb shit on the internet, and we'll get into that. In the meantime, if you want to subscribe to us on Twitch, here you get the ad-free version. And if you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/Congos. I'm going to start off right away just by playing this because it'll get us kicked off onto the right thing here. So, give me a second. Here we go. This is a reel I did the other day. Hey, Johnny Congus, platinum certified songwriter and playlist creator. Let's talk about the C word. Not that one. This one's way worse. I'm talking about the word curated. Listen, like I said, I like making playlists, and I've C-worded hundreds of them for myself over the years. I'm talking about the ones on streaming services by the editorial staff, like At My Desk, or Help Me Sleep, A Day in Philadelphia, Eating Outside, Solitude, Freshening Up, On a Deadline, Nature Walk, Cleaning My Room, Staying In, A Good Cry. I can kind of relate to that one. Now, I don't want to come across like a C word, but whoever C-worded those is a C word. Hey, Johnny Congus, platinum certified song.
Yeah, that's definitely the best one that you've done.
All right, so I did this weeks ago, but I wanted to bring this up because Danny and I have been talking about we're switching from Apple Music to Spotify or Amazon Music or Tidal or whatever. You know, it's a constant debate because every single one of them has got something wrong with the service. Yeah. So I'm going to just screen share again because the reason things suck is this is the homepage of Apple Music. And there's some things I like about Apple Music, and I'm kind of, once you get invested in a system, like you're locked in. But here's the homepage, right? And I'll describe this for people that aren't watching, they're just listening. So yeah, as you'd expect, there's like promo banners for all the big new artists. It's a store, effectively, so that's fine. So then it keeps going, and it's all just like lanes they're trying to drive you to listen to. Fine, it's the homepage. Let's say you want to listen to like R&B music or music, African music. Never mind getting specific on like a country in Africa. Here's how you would do that. You keep scrolling. These are just the top 100s from everywhere. And Spotify is really similar in terms of their front page layout. You keep scrolling. Then you go down here and then you squint because you can't see that far and you click browse by category. And there's just a big fucking list of words that you can't search for. There's no quick shortcut to go to jazz or anything. It's absolutely absurd the way that they work their system. And I understand it, but it's...
Also, if you spell something wrong by one letter, or if something doesn't have a fucking umlaut on, it won't show up.
Yeah, the search is terrible on Apple. I would say across the system, and we're almost like
design is the only thing I can think. This is the extent of our conspiracy theories. We don't care about reptiles or whatever. We care about why are they not letting me find the music I want to find. And like I know there's a Jerry Lee Lewis record I really like, and you cannot search for it. I have to go search on the internet and then go get it. A Good Cry.
Yeah. I love most Apple products. Like we're all an all Apple band, you know, like we use it for all of our production and everything, but the search is absolutely ridiculously bad. But then if you go on Spotify and you want to search your own library for all songs by whatever, Kings of Leon, you can't do that either. This is the global conspiracy.
Yeah, this is the
to make you listen to to make you listen to whatever shit new record has been put out.
I think we should start going. The other mic seems to be off.
Danny's mic.
Hey.
Oh, come on. Not again.
They said they can hear you, though. So it's probably the right... Danny's probably at the right volume, then.
All right. Yeah.
Spotify is better, says Lil Pump.
Who do you
Well,
work
you've
for,
seen
Lil
Biased
Pump?
Lil Pump.
Spotify?
I do agree. Their search sucks. I don't ever really search for music on Spotify or Apple because I just use your playlists. But you told me about the Jerry Lee Lewis album, and I searched for that. I couldn't find it, and I spelt it. I checked it 3 times, spelt it right and everything. It's like if you.
Is that because he married his cousin? Like, why are they not letting you search for that?
No, because they've still got all of,
kidding,
you know, like, what's his name? R. Kelly and all that shit on there, you know? Anyway, that's the rant for the beginning of the thing.
That's what grinds John.
That's what grinds
gears.
my gears.
Yeah.
Let's open with some news.
Come on, where's Steve Jobs?
News, events, important, gossip, stories, terrifying, concerning.
This is the news.
This is the news. This is the news.
This is the news.
Study finds. Is this the name of the website?
Yeah, it's a bad website. I mean, obviously, it's one of those ones with studies. So this is a relatively interesting study, but also at the same time, it's one of those annoying studies that you get from Western scientists that are like discovering shit that people have known for thousands of years. And it's fine because, you know, it's important to get the current science up to date on it. And I'll just read the quote that got me really kind of laughing at it. And like I said, half of it is it's an interesting study. All in all, researchers say their findings strongly suggest breathing is more than something we simply perform to stay alive and supply our lungs with air. So the headline of the story is Why We Breathe, everything from thoughts, emotions, and way we experience the world influenced by the breath. And it's just one of those things like, yes, let's investigate exactly and specifically how breath affects things like anxiety, emotion, all that sort of thing. But again, it's one of those like Western studies.
It's probably not the study. It's probably the journalist.
Yeah, yeah. But it's the problem is the studyfinds.org, which is one of those shitty sites. I think that just, you know, like along the right, it's like, which multivitamins do you want there? And if you can see those headlines there. But it's just something funny about like to even write that, even as a journalist, right? Like the breath may be connected to your emotion.
More than just staying alive?
What I like to talk. What's that?
No, it's connected to more than just staying alive?
Yeah. Did you know that science was invented approximately 34 years ago?
Yeah. No.
It was, yeah. It's kind of one of those things like, well, let's say the Vedas discovered this maybe 10,000 years ago. Was that science? Or when did it start? Did science only come about with Francis Bacon? Or what? I think that people's definitions of it and, you know, where observation and empiricism begins is very arbitrary. And it's very Western. It's a very, you know, it's a very, like, it started in the West. It started with the Greeks, and it started with Francis Bacon, and it started with all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know, oftentimes when I guess it gets thrown under this idea of woke culture that's very anti-colonialist, white privilege, that sort of thing. And sometimes I think that stuff goes over the top. But the more and more I start to think about the way we've been brought up, particularly with regards to science, the more it really is a bit of a conspiracy against anything else in the world having ever discovered anything. You know, like we just brought up with, it started 200 years ago with some dude in England or Germany that's discovering this, and it throws out thousands of years worth of thought, and it's very dismissive because it's always like you start to throw around the word spirituality in regards to like yoga or like. And these things are actually sciences even in the Western definition of the word, you know.
Yeah. There's also, I mean, I guess you could say we're being dismissive about modern stuff and not kind of taking into consideration how much of it is interesting and successful and contributive. But there's also another attitude. It'll be like, you know, Hippocrates or something thought that that hysteria was because a woman's womb would wander around the body. That's where the word, hysteria comes from. Hysterectomy is all related. It comes from the Greek word for uterus. So it's probably, you know, it's an insane idea, but that doesn't mean that everything that came out of there was insane. they were also able to make
Yeah.
other discoveries. They were also able to find that willow bark was a kind of panacea, and it took.
Yeah, they find one thing untrue or wrong about a culture or a time period's knowledge, and
they're
it's
like,
like
"This
you
is so
just,
ba-
you
they were
just
so
throw out
backwards."
everything about it.
Yeah.
I've come across studies like this or articles, and it's probably is what Danny says more than anything is I can't tell sometimes if it's AI writing the articles or not. Because like 3 paragraphs in, I start to say this English doesn't seem like this author's first language, but then it's not as if it's someone speaking a different language. It's like a robot that's trying to get the information and write it into a palatable form, and it comes across as just like a non-human.
Can you? Sorry. We're gonna take a second and try and figure
Well, I
out.
can't test the mic if I'm over there.
Yeah, Dylan, just go sit in Danny's mic position. Sorry, we're gonna try and sort out this audio issue. Listen to mix 3 and talk into there.
So I'm talking into Danny's microphone. Danny's microphone. Danny's microphone.
It's going to be funny. This is going to become a troll that people are going to start doing to
Yeah.
us on the stream. We need someone that we trust, as in like Jesse.
Danny's
to confirm
microphone?
That everyone's microphone is at the same volume. All right. How are we doing, guys? Let us know out there.
Yeah, so AI writing these articles, it's not like that the studies are being done, but then it's literally bots kind of scouring the internet and
Right.
amalgamating. Information
Have
and
you
putting
seen
into
those?
an article.
There's an ad for AI copywriting that pops up.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
seen that?
I've
that's
seen
pretty
that. It's
interesting.
insane.
Actually.
Yeah. And it's just like you just have to finish the details,
Yeah.
but it'll write your copyright for you.
Yeah. Back on so I've been listening to the Randall Carson and Graham Hancock on Joe Rogan about they're talking about ancient technologies and some of the studies and archaeology that they've been kind of right about for the past 20 or 30 years, but that modern archaeology and Egyptologists have just dismissed. And a lot of it doesn't sound like any mass conspiracy. It sounds like people got into an argument and they're right, and they just can't give up on that. Like Egyptologists have are starting to show that they've been wrong about the dating of the Sphinx and things like that, dating of certain buildings and discoveries, and they just can't let go of that because they've put so much time. They've put 20, 30 years of their own research and time and money into something that they just cannot let go of that. Like one of the things they mentioned, it was thought that the modern anatomical human was something like 30 or 40,000 years old. Then in the last 20 years, it went to that number jumped from 30,000 to 130,000. And now in the last 5 years, it's now jumped to 300 plus thousand years old. Modern anatomical, similar
that's
or
a
same human.
That's a lot of time for shit to go
that is
missing.
but that's not just like, oh, we were slightly off. Like it wasn't 30,000 years. No, it's actually more like 35,000 years, which even 5,000 years is an enormous amount of time. They were 270,000 years off.
Yeah, and the thing that is wrong about that is not that they were wrong. Like you couldn't figure. It's the fact that when people set something that they stick to it so vociferously. But you can see why that happens because look at us when we're in a studio working on a song and one of us has dug our feet in to. Like, no, the bass groove is right.
Yeah.
And for like a week, you'll argue about it and not want to change it, not want to fix it. Then you eventually fix it. You're like, oh, yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And imagine that happening now across all disciplines,
Yeah. I bet you those humans, like, they probably used words like shell shock instead of PTSD. They were probably just super regressive back then.
Here's another news story while we're on the news. Someone just paid more than $200,000 for Steve Jobs' old Birkenstocks.
Huh, that's
Sweet.
stupid.
There they are.
Birkenstocks. Jesus Christ. Just fucking burn your money on camera. That's a more...
And so that's the silly Apple news for the week. And here's more silly Apple news, I think. I don't know enough about this story to really comment, but I'll comment anyway. Apple is being forced, I guess with all phone makers in Europe, to comply with having to have a USB-C connector because they want it standardized across the thing because the Europeans have decided that it's too many different cables in that. So
Is
it's
it
just
because
like-
Berlusconi was like Tindering and there was not a charger and he was pissed off that they only had a USB-C charger or
I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go on a limb and just say it's dumb. When you start trying to tell Apple what kind of cable, and I'm not saying Apple's guiltless in this. They definitely do all kinds of shady things like that make you buy the charger 4 times, or the battery starts going funny allegedly when the new phone comes out. All that sort of thing. I'm not saying that they're like these angels, but when government bureaucrats start trying to dictate what should occur on technology, like they fucking invented the iPhone, the smartphone, and which cable works, and now you've got a bunch of people sitting in an office somewhere saying no, they should use this one because it's more convenient.
Well, it's under the guise of consumer protection, but they are proving by their narrow focus on a relatively minor issue how little they're concerned with citizens and consumers. Let's focus on this fucking minor charger issue and not on something enormous.
Right.
You know.
And it seems, like it's. I completely lost my train of thought. Because I was thinking about the chat that came out because Stu Chalmers on Facebook says Apple never explicitly said they would use USB-C, may just use wireless. But I've seen that they have now said that they're going to have to comply because you just can't go against what a country or a conglomerate of people says to that size.
Look at this here. A friend of mine is a sommelier in this is Pernilla. At a shift the other week, a customer ordered a 5,000-pound bottle of wine and left without drinking half of it. Well, if the wine was bad, I agree with that. I don't think you should drink something you don't like. But he was thrilled he got to... Oh, the sommelier got to try it. Yeah, that's cool. Vile way of spending money. See, it's a bit arbitrary, that kind of line as to what becomes vile. The Birkenstocks thing is way dumber. At least you can drink that wine. And then it's just a question of excessive. If I go above $12 on a bottle of wine, I feel excessive. Because I can't tell the difference, to be honest. I can't, I just know I like it and then I don't like it.
Yeah. Pernilla mentions the Ancient Apocalypse above. If you scroll up a little bit, that's who I'm talking about. It's those two guys, Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, are on for like 3 hours talking about that on the Joe Rogan podcast, and that's the show that they've just put out on Netflix. Right. Which is it does seem clickbaity, and they played a few clips from it, and it was like the overdubs and the music and the sound kind of like a cheesy TV show, but it is pretty dang interesting.
Yeah, I saw those clips. It's some marketing executive got a hold of it. It's like, we need the zoop sound on it. Just to go back to the wine thing real quick, like 5,000 pounds on a bottle of wine is too much to begin with, unless you're rich, and then it's not, so who cares? But I've started taking more of the attitude of not finishing or drinking things I don't like. Like I don't know what point I'm trying to prove. I'm not talking about in a general thing, like don't waste food. I feel like that's kind of basically wrong in the world. But if something's not tasting good, like don't eat it. Or don't like there's no. What's the point you're trying to prove? That you spent the $3 or the $5,000 or the $10, whatever it is. There's no point in proving that you can finish it.
If it makes you then in the future not mindlessly buy something, then that's a positive impact, because now you're making a decision. You're making a decision earlier to not buy something that you're not going to consume.
Yeah, Pernilla says it's a vile way of spending money, but I don't know if I can agree with that, because it's literally everything is relative when it comes to how you spend your money. Look at us. Do you know how much these microphones cost so that we can sit here and talk absolute shit for hours at a time for mild entertainment? Like it's very, very, it's a dangerous road to go down. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it for yourself, like make judgment calls about how you should spend money, but it's a very open and gray road to try and say what's good and bad to spend money on within the context of the vast differentials in what people have on this earth.
Well, I mean, I don't know. This podcast is giving light to the.
I kind of,
Planet
the
and universe.
the Kings of Leon guys, I kind of like their attitude towards money. I don't know if it's just based on my observation. I don't know if this is their actual attitude. I'm just kind of assuming or inferring. But they were, because they grew up extremely poor, right, in Tennessee. And they had basically a complete disregard for money, it seemed like to me. Like they just didn't care about it. So they would spend it like, it was going out of style. $10,000 snakeskin boots and that kind of shit. But it was also like they would be okay if they lost all their money. It's not going to actually change them that much in either direction. So I admire that. You always hear about like Elvis just giving people Cadillacs and just kind of like blowing money. I kind of think that's an almost admirable way of treating money.
Yeah, I wish I had enough money to give people Cadillacs.
Well, speaking of giving money away, old Jeffrey Bezos and his wife have said, it's very vague, like a lot of billionaires, they're giving away most of their money.
Bullshit.
Right. Which is
bullshit.
Yeah, and they just they just gave $100 million to Dolly Parton, and I don't know if you guys know this. I kind of find this out with having Juna now. She has this book club effectively where she sends books to any kids that want them, and it's a pretty fucking amazing program. And Dolly Parton is, I think, a genuinely good and important part of humanity. But they gave her an award. First of all, just donate to her charity. They did this whole ceremony, and this award of $100 million to Dolly Parton. This is Jeff Bezos and his wife's new thing. There's something. It was so condescending and disingenuous about it. I don't know why.
It's also ridiculous to think you can be to think that you could possibly be condescending towards Dolly Parton in your own mind. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's that. I think I'm cynical beyond belief when it comes to these guys, but I don't trust a single, even if they do good, even if they're doing good, it's not from any, which you could probably attribute to everyone or all of us. But I don't think there's an ounce of altruism in these psychopaths that have gotten to that level. Like when you see the Gates Foundation and what they've, now we're going to be fuck. When they're talking about all their philanthropic stuff, like that money goes to Monsanto. It goes to, like, they invested in private prisons at one point. Their money is goes into an investment funds,
right?
And then it starts, and they call it philanthropic.
There's to play devil's advocate, there's no way to manage that amount of money without making a lot of mistakes.
No, yeah, but you could be like,
not Monsanto.
Yeah, not going to give it to Monsanto, or I'm not going to give it to the private prison.
Right. Yeah.
I heard that this is just a rumor. It's not. This is allegedly. I heard that he gave it to Dolly Parton in Prime gift cards that she had to redeem. $100 million worth of Prime gift cards.
Dolly Parton, there was something on Netflix about, Reese Witherspoon had a show on Netflix where she interviewed people, and one of them was Dolly Parton, and she's fucking cool. She's based like...
Dolly Parton?
Yeah. No, Dolly Parton.
Yeah, she's cool.
Yeah, she's like... They got into the book club thing and all that, and everything about her seems genuine, other than her appearance. But that's what's the contradiction is so bizarre, because she's so modified as a person, but then she kind of emanates genuineness.
Yeah, there's a clip going around of her talking about how she grew up poorer than poor, so she got nothing to lose, and it's like sometimes you can just feel it. Whereas if you see. Everyone loves Warren Buffett too, and
fucking annoying.
We get into this argument a lot with our friend Jake we have a group chat, and he's always talking about how Warren Buffett's the best, and he's clearly the best investor. But
who cares?
that little fuck walks around like eating his McDonald's and his Coke, and he pretends like that's what he's doing. Meanwhile, he's like sabotaging fucking railway station or pipeline, so that he can get oil sent on his railroad to like the places. Like this guy is not your fucking friend.
Right.
Allegedly.
Yeah. He's a Rockefeller that eats ice cream. It's so lame, and that his whole cutesy thing. It's like, I still live in the same house. Yeah, but you still want power. That's fine. Just stop fucking trying to convince me that you're this cute old man.
Yeah, that's
shit.
fucking
and
annoying.
Your partner is building dorm rooms with no windows in it, like a psycho, and he's saying that the LED panels are better than windows. Have you seen that of Charlie Munger?
Yeah, we talked about this in the last one. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
What's the history context of it also is now when you see some opera theater or like symphony theater was donated by the Rockefeller Foundation and all that. It was all charitable. At the time, people hated Rockefeller more than they hate any billionaire currently. Like the anger against him because he was plowing through the country just ripping things up.
I don't, billionaires are going to billionaire. They probably come from some evolutionary trait. We talk about this all the time, the idea that evolution allows for a spectrum of behavior because it allows for the diversity necessary to find what's most advantageous. So I think to internally view people as bad or good is a bit silly. The part I don't like is the part that offends me, and I shouldn't be offended by it, but is the pandering. Like Warren Buffett feels like he's fucking pandering to me.
Yeah, but that you see, it's right. It has nothing to do with being the billionaire.
Right.
It's got because I've met people that have got $200 in their bank accounts, and they do the same kind of pandering.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we'll get to some of those people on the Instagram. I've got some Instagram. This week.
You know who I think is the also genuine in that way, which I used to not like him at all, just based on his music, because I basically didn't like listening to the. It's kind of like college. It was college rock, folk rock. Is Jack Johnson?
Yeah, he seems cool.
But his new album's actually pretty good. But he seems like a real sweet guy, and genuinely, he does the stuff
he lives on Hawaii, right? And
he lives on Hawaii, surfs. I don't like becoming a famous musician.
You wish you were Jack Johnson.
His music fame, I think, kind of came almost accidentally because he was just making music for the surf videos. But anyway, he does some really. He's always. I don't know how he has so much time in the day. He's always out there like planting a tree somewhere, and he's. And he insists, even though it actually ends up costing him money, like at all his shows, they can't use reusable, or they have to use reusable glasses and cups and stuff. So you have to basically, if you're going to buy a beer, you have to buy a cup that you use, and all sorts of things like that. Like there's everything's renewable and recyclable, and he definitely seems genuine in that sense.
It's a bit silly to criticize people's proclivities, but a part of me is like, isn't it so fucking weird to just drink your Diet Coke and just try to get more companies your entire life?
I think it's the hokey part of it that it seems like a made-up little PR stunt. The same way I don't actually believe that Bill Clinton was born in a town called Hope, Arkansas. Here's my conspiracy for the week. He was born in a town called Hope, Arkansas. You guys went there on a day off. I was somewhere else on tour once. And it seems like it was just like a made-up story, a perfect made-up story for a politician to be like, I came from a little town.
Where did he learn to put cigars up vaginas? Like
that was next door in a different town of a different name. All right, here's one last.
A healthy distrust of anyone like that is probably the best thing someone can have. And by healthy, I mean like utter and complete.
I also don't
distrust.
think Elon Musk is South African. I think he's Canadian. So deal with that one. Yeah.
All right, here's the last little bit of news story. This is actually kind of cool. It relates, I guess, partially to what we were talking about in that Ancient Apocalypse show with Randall Carlson. They have like Google Earthed basically the Great Pyramid.
Well,
so you can go walk through it now. I guess it was Harvard University that did this.
Whoa. Holy shit.
So that's kind of cool. And it'll be interesting. I mean, I wonder if any of it has been restricted or if you're getting full access to the entire mapping of it.
Definitely
but whenever they do this kind of thing, it'll be interesting to see what the public out there finds, because there's nothing like a billion humans poring over something to find something.
Yeah.
So yeah,
there's a bunch of, some of those distributed network programs. It's not people doing it, but where you could contribute your computing power to like finding new proteins and that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool use of the distributed networks where people would just contribute all of their computing power to folding, proteins.
He was actually SETI was the first of that, right?
Burb says he was actually born in a place called bum fucking nowhere. I mean, I'm sure he fucks in all sorts of ways, Burb. Yeah. interesting thing about one aspect of the pyramids I like, or one of the ideas I like, is that they're observatories. They were observatories. I mean, and this is just my bullshit conjecture, but in order to image the inside of some of those chambers, they used murons, which are cosmic rays. So they use it's like an X-ray machine and these particles can penetrate extremely deep into the stone. And it's pretty interesting to think, like, if you wanted to observe cosmic rays, would you need to block out other stuff? Is there any scientists out there?
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. That in order to image some of those chambers, they used the densest rays, or the deepest penetrating rays that they could to get into the pyramids.
Here's again a non-science mind thinking about this, but when you look at the different waves on the spectrum of electromagnetic, and you get up to like gamma rays and beyond, these, like, we just live in such a light-based world, the way we think about things. There are things that go through things. Like, it's just such a crazy idea. I know it sounds silly what I'm saying, but like, there are rays that emanating from the sun or other parts of the universe, other solar systems, other suns, that go through lead, that go through the earth.
Yeah.
And that is just like, I know I sound like a high person, like, whoa, dude, but it's crazy.
I mean, you need that kind of fact to break you out of your presumptions. Like, there's a interview with Richard Feynman, and the guy goes, "So how do magnets work?" And he goes, "I don't know. First of all, I can't explain this to you, but also, like, why don't you ask why your hand doesn't go through the chair? You know, you're arbitrarily picking this as a unique phenomenon which it is. Like, you know, magnetism is interesting and worthy of study, but he's saying you're just taking everything else for granted. You're taking every interaction between all matter for granted, and you're just accepting it as normal and saying that this is special."
Yeah. That's why I keep reading these comments here. That's why I want to watch this show, the Ancient Apocalypse, that's what it's called. He was talking, like someone just said, the pyramids were built by hand. People had to build them. They still don't know. There's like a theory every year. They still don't know how they were built. Randall Carlson's talking about in a few months they're going to reveal some of the technology that they've been working on, that supposedly Mazda is putting some financing behind for some energy machine, and it's based on geometric shapes and sound resonance. And he said this, like, who knows, like, how accurate this is going to be when it actually gets revealed, but he says that they're able to move rocks and do things like that using this technology without touching it, basically by using sound resonance. And he talks about that in every story, in every story about the pyramids being built at the time, there's talks of the priests chanting. There's always priests chanting while building the pyramids.
They're muons. They exist for 2.2 microseconds before they decay into an electron and two kinds of neutrinos.
What? Just give context for people who aren't seeing the
sorry,
comments.
they're talking about what particles they were using. I think the machines generate muons, and then apparently these turn into neutrinos.
Okay.
But it's like a big X-ray type thing.
I see. Pernilla's always on our Discord has always got. She knows about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Makes me think she's a bot. All right. Let's just see some of the worst things on the internet right now. Danny, who discovered this?
Me.
One Golden Thread.
Oof.
I guess it's a clothing company out of Los Angeles, designed by Jeff Skult is his name, but it looks like Jeff's Cult, that's a clever little name. Anyway, I've selected a couple highlights from his thing, because this is the worst thing I've seen on the internet.
I like it.
I'm going to just watch a little bit of this.
Have you watched it?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
The coolest drink set, and it comes in two sizes: a little vino or a little sake, and then water or a vessel. So super excited about this, which is just launched. It's on the site. We only have 25 of them on each side, so these are going to go fast, and then we'll bring them back. But I'm telling you, the massage itself is incredible. Well, here, actually, you know what?
Let me see. Sorry, I gotta get to this section. He's the founder of this company.
Good or bad. It's
Listen.
parents were like, no, we actually are all doing inside, not including myself. I was no longer the amplifier. Of
Oh shit, the sound's not good on this one. I'll get to here's the highlights. That's Tate Fletcher. I don't know who he is.
Fighter.
Fighter? Okay, I won't say anything bad about him.
Yeah.
But just watch this video.
Cool. That's fire.
These hats, they just keep coming back.
That's fire.
That's fire.
That's not what the video Danny sent.
Oh no, yeah,
It's about the threads. Like that didn't seem that bad.
Oh, yeah.
This one?
Yeah, I think it's that one.
There's an artist inside each of us, within. And at some point along your journey, you've either started or you're ready to begin to give zero about others' opinions of you, to clear the decks for your infinite,
torture.
your transcendent truth. We are all healers as mirrors to witness each other being our own revealers. No woo-woo, no guru. Spirit full over spiritual. The gold already resides inside you. Yes to life with no hesitation and reservations. Free dive into the unknown beyond your comfort zone. Expectations. It's your choice, and you've claimed your golden voice. And you now share your gift with increased ignition. When in doubt, get out, while embracing the beauty and the magic of the mystery of life's journey. More liberated and free together than apart.
He just keeps going.
Each moment
yeah.
is a
He just
choice
keeps
point
going.
to live from an open heart.
I mean, this guy is too fucking much. But he's got look like Aaron fucking Rodgers.
It's there's a video that Danny sent, I think, of them talking about the threads, the type of outer stitching and all
Right,
that,
yeah.
and how it's connecting to your primal self and all this stuff.
So this is what you got to choose between. You got to choose between fucking Warren Buffett pretending that I just eat ice cream, and this.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. So I came across that from that guy. I came across this.
Of all 8 billion people on the planet, you're going to run into or interconnect with the individual that is specifically aligned with your dharma or karma. And
Dharma
it is
or
very
karma.
meticulously designed with the people that we find attraction to, whether it's for a very short period of time or for a lifetime.
Look at the hats.
And you have curriculum for each other. You have certain ways to burn off your karma in the presence of individuals that you connect with. That does not happen with all the women in the group. So for me personally, I'm not trying to compete with the other woman in the group because I trust that what is meant for me, there was nothing I could do to fuck it up. That level of trust in the universe, I send it out. So if my sister over there is scrapping away to get the attention of this individual, do all you must. But more effort does not mean more results. So just recognizing that if I stay in my truth and I stay in my center, that actually...
Fuck, dude, there's all this fucking language that gets really popular. Like, if I stay in my truth, and someone said to me, do you want to share space? And I said, is it in a fucking inferno? Because if so, I would like to burn. Jesus Christ.
There's one more just on this thread. Like, you started this, Danny, by the way, by sending me that one golden thread.
Well, you always do it to us. You always find...
So, I don't know who this artist is, which is on the Aubrey Marcus podcast. Just refresh and play it.
Hour she opens for your devotion, an ocean of timeless pleasure.
What is this about?
So, with those lyrics, what it's saying is, because I trust you, because I know that you have reverence and you honor me and you honor my body, and that the act of sexing, whether it's fucking and it's wild and there's power dynamics, or it's just a sensual, erotic making love, because I feel that sense of safety, my ability to fully open myself and be in my full feminine principle of surrender to what.
I think Freud got a couple things right, like the obsession with sex in like silly ways. It dominates all aspects of life, and it's like it's the way he answered that question. Like I just feel like he's like, she's hot. It's just you can see so easily through the
I'd
transparency.
like to put my karma in your dharma, if you know what I mean.
It's so transparent. Men, I get it. Men are fucking dumb when women say that. Like I'm almost 100% on their side, because when you see a guy like that, just be so transparent with what the whole podcast is about. It's like, just shut up, fucking go on a date.
The term cuttlefish I'd never heard before till like a year or two ago, and it's become one of my favorite terms. Can you look it up? Like exactly what? It's not look it up. The term. It's a real thing. It's a real fish, the cuttlefish, which during mating season, a small male fish will sneak under a female fish and wait there without the female fish knowing it. And so then when a larger male fish comes in and tries to have sex with the female fish, the little guy like sneaks in and gets his chance, or how am I supposed to say this? He gets in his fuck. And that's a cuttlefish. And so now it's a term used for people that are kind of that pander to women using their language, or pander to them insincerely using issues that they may not actually believe in, but they're using it just basically to sleep with someone.
It's ulterior motives that is what makes you bristle, and everyone has an ulterior motive at all times. So it's it's hypocritical to criticize it. It's still fun to just laugh at when it's transparent. I think that's what it's, the pandering and the ulterior motives. If they're unsophisticated, it's funny or silly, Like that's Warren Buffett, man. He's just fucking pretending to eat ice cream.
I wrote a whole song about this guy. It's called "Birds Do It." Bees do it.
That's the best comment we've had in a long time.
What's the comment?
Beanburb, hey guys, I just got back from doing the dishes. I was letting my 9-year-old nephew watch the show. In the meantime, what did I miss?
Well, first of all, Beanburb, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I think he might be joking.
He's joking.
He's not.
He's
but yeah,
serious. That cuttlefish is such a perfect, clearly it exists in nature. It's not an unnatural thing. It's a totally natural thing.
Our projection to view it, use it as an insult.
It's just that it's so much funnier when you even thinking about the fish doing it. It's so much funnier than like the peacock or the other fish that basically have very colorful scales to attract the mate, or the bird that collects all the red things on the National Geographic documentary or whatever, like collecting all the red things to attract a mate. This is like just sneaking in there under the guise of a larger
Well, I
male.
I think about those little birds like getting, Coke bottle lids and putting them in their nests and all that stuff every time, because I'm trying to make my place look better and look nicer and stuff like that. And every time I'm doing stuff like, should move this little, trinket over on my mantle here. I just feel like one of those little birds collecting Coke bottles, just hoping that the female bird gets tricked into thinking it's nice or something. Like it's.
Have you guys read this lyric? Could I buy you a drink? Could I sing you a song? I could start a war, we could both just get along. I could build a wall or I could tear it down. And I could tell you why. Everything's that same old lie.
I don't like it.
Pretty profound stuff. All right, enough fooling around for this week. Let's talk about music. Let's start backwards with you, Dan. What did you pick this week?
Can you remind me? Because
hold on.
Let me just pull it up here. Sorry.
Ray Charles, You Are My Sunshine.
Ray Charles, You Are My Sunshine. Okay.
Danny's definitely picked this song before on.
Probably, yeah. It is one of my favorite songs, though. So the lyric is incredible. I'll do something else for the lyric, but he brings the song to a whole new level. He's got the best version of it. And I associate it with Unstrung Heroes. the movie with Andy McDowell and John Turturro, because in the movie she's dying of cancer and then she's making pancakes with her son, and he puts that on in that scene, and it's like a really good scene. Diane Keaton directed that movie. It's a great movie. Anyway, the whole thing's about this guy having a dream that his wife is still with him, and then he wakes up and remembers that she's dead. So like, pretty dark song, but if you just listen casually, you don't pick that up from the lyric. You know, you are my sunshine, my only sunshine, and all that kind of stuff. And he's got the best version of it. And then for lyric, I picked Bob Dylan, Nettie Moore, another great song. Just a nice little line. He said, "The world of research has gone berserk, too much paperwork." And I'm not even in anything approximating something that you would call a lot of paperwork, and it feels like paperwork is daunting.
It's too much.
Yeah.
I started to try and make a rule down here in the studio, because I use this from just like my regular office dealing with mail and all that, of not putting mail on any of the instruments. Like incoming mail, just paperwork to deal with, because there's just something about psychologically. Then you see it on the Fender Rhodes, you're like, I fucking hate that Fender Rhodes, because you see the paperwork that you have to deal with. So I try to put it elsewhere.
That's true, you know, because I just had a bunch of shit on my piano, and I had like receipts and stuff like that, Home Depot receipts. And as soon as I took them off, it was a much better feeling to not mess up that piano. Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that psychologically, man.
Yeah, man. What would Aubrey Marcus say about that? You know, if you clean your room, you clean your mind, or is that?
Would you like to see my bedroom?
Yeah. Someone cleaned it for me.
Yeah. All right,
I made enough money that I can pay people to clean my bedroom for me.
Here's Dylan's songs for the week.
I did Punch Brothers, Familiarity. Yeah, I don't know. Just go listen to it. It's very cool. Punch Brothers is the guy that used to be Nickel Creek, and now it's like 4 or 5 Grammy award-winning musicians. Probably one of the best live shows we've ever seen. We saw it in a small 500 cap club in Phoenix, and they're just like savant level musicians. And then for the lyric, I picked this is a weird song. I think she was almost like at least a one-hit wonder that lasts like a few decades. I couldn't find any other songs that I recognize of hers. Maybe she was large or big at the time, but the song is So Glad I Am, and I just put the verses up on the notes to read. It's a really cool song from the 50s or 60s. My love has no beginning, my love has no end. No front, no back, my love won't bend. I'm in the middle, lost in a spin, loving you. My love has no bottom, my love has no top. My love won't rise, my love won't drop. I'm in the middle and I can't stop loving you. My love has no walls on either side. That makes my love wider than wide. I'm in the middle and I can't hide loving you. I've just been coming across kind of these old-fashioned love songs, which are so much more honest, I guess. And also this was quite clever. I liked my love has no walls on either side. That makes my love wider than wide. That's just a funny turn of phrase.
Yeah. It's very hard to write just a straight, honest love song, especially using the word love a lot. You know?
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that.
Yeah, it's too bad we can't play the music on it, because it's.
I know, that would be.
It's
a
delivery.
Really cool, interesting song too.
And a lot of it is delivery. That's what I find with all that Jerry Lee Lewis stuff. So if you just go read the lyric, it's not the same as this guy delivering it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for music this week, I started listening to a lot more ZZ Top. I mean, I always listened to it, but once we got here to Texas, they're a Texas band, I think from Houston, I want to say, or somewhere like that. Yeah. It's the classic, like they had so many hits, but they're one of the big ones, LaGrange. Yeah. Play it every time. You drive from here to Houston, you go through LaGrange, and it's basically one of the coolest rock and roll songs ever recorded. Lyrics, I don't even know how I came across this. I think it was when I was just looking at Apple Music and I was clicking on country. There's a new song out by Brantley Gilbert, Toby Keith, and Hardy called The Worst Country Song of All Time. And it's one of those things where they're definitely doing it tongue in cheek, right?
Right.
But I don't I think it still ends up just being corny. You know, like they're making a joke, but it's also not corny. So here's the lyric. This is the worst country song of all time, and it goes, I hate beer and honky-tonk women. I don't eat deer, and I can't stand fishing. I don't know the words to family tradition, Folsom Prison, or Walk the Line. I think sweet tea's overrated. And all dirt roads were made for paving. But you get it. Like they're making fun of all the things. But it just seemed like a cheap trick to just say all those. Like it's not funny enough. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, basically it's stupid.
Yeah. And then they have a saxophone solo. It's like they did it all as a joke, but they're not funny comedians.
Yeah.
You know, when you watch like Little Dicky or like even Weird Al, like proper parody songs are actually quite hard to do.
Yeah, I get the sense Toby Keith also he has a chef and he probably gets his eyebrows waxed. Like he
not enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty clever. This is gonna be a big.
Oh,
hit.
yeah,
It must be a big
money-wise,
hit.
yeah, because it's all self-referential. It's like he doesn't like red Solo cups and all his other big.
It's clever in the way that
country music would think
or
it's clever.
in the way that like deep frying a pizza is clever or
It's
something.
clever enough to be a big
Yeah,
hit.
yeah.
That's all it has to be. It's like, which just makes it.
I'll play it to you guys after the stream. It's
My favorite Toby Keith line is, I don't know the difference between Iraq and Iran. It's from that We'll Put a Boot Up Your Ass song. It's the American way.
it came out right after 9/11.
Right after
He's
9/11.
just a fucking asshole.
Yeah, it's just a true dickwad. That don't make a difference to me. We'll just kill them all. Just
we'll just kill 1 million of your people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's surprising that hasn't come back to haunt people. The absolute just over the top. Like I get the reaction.
What can you
9/11
possibly say about that? That's gonna
to him.
Yeah.
I guess if people would just, still.
I mean, at
basically
the
believe
time, people were like, "This is so stupid."
Yeah.
So you can't. You know.
I mean, even people lose their mind when it comes to taking sides in anything like sports games. I think America's kind of built on taking sides in a sport game, so that when it comes to war, it's like there's no question we're on this side, they're on that side. Because even Dave Chappelle on his SNL thing was pretty damn good, and but he had this little bit which I don't have a problem with anyone making a joke about anything. I don't care what it is, you can make a joke about it. But there was this political ideology behind it. Instead of just trying to be funny, he was talking about the Ukrainians killing 10,000 or 20,000 Russians in the first week, and he makes a joke about how they're killing them with just household products instead of and there was just something in the tone that he did it, which was so kind of what's the word for taking sides? It was so partisan, yeah, but at the same time, I heard the joke, the visceral thought or the feeling of, 20,000 people died in a week.
Right.
That's insane.
It's
and so I don't mind a joke about war, or a joke about anything, but there was something just so stupid about it. It's like this Toby Keith,
Yeah, I think it's what you're probably trying to get at is what are you rooting for?
Yeah.
Actually, what are you actually?
It wasn't just trying to be funny.
Right.
It was
so I can understand
because the crowd whooped.
If
the
you
crowd
are,
whooped at this.
yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, woo! Kill 20,000 people."
Well, when you see, when they, if you were in Ukraine and you got news that some front was taken back or they killed it, you can understand people cheering for that because their lives are directly affected. It's the distance, I think, that I find weird when people talk about war with such casualness and with such distance, as though it is a game.
Yeah.
Well, it's the way I feel about when you see people that cheer on a death penalty execution after 15 years of appeals and now justice is going to be served. I get if someone killed someone in your family and there's revenge. Everyone understands reactive violence, which is what happens in wartime situations. If you're Ukraine and Russia now, it's war. People are just saying fuck, we want our side to win, and that's completely understandable. It's the distance, like you're saying, and then the premeditatedness of it. I think Jesse's song, Hey, I Don't Know, that line he's got, where's the glory in making mothers weep? Quite viscerally drives home the point of what any death in any war or anywhere, but particularly in war, is. There's someone's child died.
Yeah.
Like it's like the horror of it. You know, I forget who we were talking about this with, but they've never portrayed war on the news. Basically, there was a brief period in Vietnam, I think, where they start like the news reporters were like, "Fuck this, we're going to show what it's actually like," and it came out there. But you see those old footage from World War II, and it's always like, "We're doing great, the guys are happy," and it's only afterwards, occasionally, that people dig and find what war actually looks like, and they kind of do the same thing now. It's not like, even though we've got unlimited access to data, there's still, you're getting like these very crafted versions of what's going on.
I mean, you know, I've got a friend here he was a paratrooper and the fireman. Like, if you meet someone who's in war and went to war, I rarely have a problem with them, because it's not, you know, I'm not actually critical of soldiers or war or people who find themselves in that situation. It's more the kind of civilian attitude towards it, which I find bizarre. And I felt the same thing that you felt watching that bit. I was like, yeah, it's a bit of a rooting thing going on, as opposed to just like,
you can't even you don't see war what it's like. We literally cannot fathom what it's like, other than people who have actually been in war. But when you try to fathom 1 million people dying, like everyone's right now on all the social media and all that, they're super up in arms about the term disinformation and misinformation and stuff, and people need punished for this and that. It's like, based on false information, 1 million people, mostly civilians, were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan and everything. And like, you literally cannot fathom the amount of space that many bodies takes up. If you were to lay them out, it takes up, like, I'm not going to make up a number, but you couldn't actually imagine it. And so it's just weird that it doesn't strike even someone like Dave Chappelle. Like, didn't strike him in that moment, like, to make that joke.
I think there's something that's happened in the digital age that, despite there being more information, there's less real information. And what I mean by real information is the direct falling on you and your being of the experience of something. Because it's not just like a desensitization because we've all seen 1,000 movies with war, or 1,000 like live leak clips or whatever. It's the fact that it exists digitally. Your body and your brain cannot process it in the same way. And I think it's also led to a lot of the like disconnection from people, you know, that you just, have to experience something firsthand, and somehow
you need more of your senses involved.
It hasn't happened digitally, and it's I think it's a big falling point in some of these like techno evangelists who think that this is the solution to everything. And maybe we'll get there when you just plug in and every part of your senses is doing that, but there's no visceral reaction to anything, and it's then because of that cheapens the horror of war. It lessens the impact of music, of film, everything. It's just diluted because it exists as a digital abstraction somewhere.
I think it is a desensitizing, and it comes, if you get a more, I remember reading a Farewell to Arms, and Hemingway is describing the smells of like the trenches, you know, because he was in World War I. And it's secondhand, obviously, it's just a book, but I got more of a visceral sense of stuff from that than 90% of the shit you consume on TV. And it's because, you know, a lot of what I consume now is like baking on Instagram. And someone I know said, yeah, man, bread is great. It's like a mass extinction event. That's what makes it great, you know, because all the yeast are dying. But yeah, you consume that in the same way that you consume some kind of edited war footage, a horror movie, all of that stuff. It all strikes you at the same point.
Spiritual advice.
Yeah, exactly. It's all coming into the same place. You're not smelling anything. You're not touching anything. Like, all you have to do is a rat died in my shed a few months ago. That is a more kind of visceral reminder of what might be related to something. Just smell death, like, as opposed to think about it. Like,
well, and it all actually comes back to food,
the
disconnection from food. And obviously Dylan is getting back into touch with this. And you were talking about the fact that you've become this destroyer of worlds when you walk through your garden and you have to kill bunches of pests.
Yeah, I have like an interesting experiment that if anyone ever helps or volunteers, and because everyone eats from the garden, we all eat from it, and there's a certain amount of pests you have to kill, and sometimes a year you get like an infestation of cucumber beetles or these brassica eating worms, cabbage loopers, and I'm relatively desensitized to it now, but there's not an insect I kill, which it still doesn't cross my mind that I'm taking the life of this insect. And everyone, so when like Amber and her sister were out helping me, and I've done it with like anyone who comes and helps, if they're going to eat and there's a cabbage or a piece of lettuce or something like that with a worm on it, I say, well, you kill it. I'm already killing all the ones I find. I'm not taking on your karma and your sin. And it's surprisingly difficult because everyone's happy to eat the lettuce once we harvest it, or they're happy for me to kill the worm. But when you have to squish a worm in your fingers and not just like throw it away, and make it suffer for 12 hours while it's laying in the grass and some bird gets to eat it or whatever, like you have to just do it. It's a pretty interesting experience, no matter how small they are.
It's because you're touching it. Because I have one of those bug assaults. It's a gun that shoots salt at flies, and just that extra bit of distance makes it into a video game. You have to, you have to touch the stuff. So now I do pick up the fly, and it's like it's the distance.
Yeah, I remember thinking that some gig we were doing, we had a hotel room for the green room that was on like the 40th floor.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, oh yeah, you could become very evil if you lived on a high floor. Because you look at things and you cannot really conceive of a human being from 40 floors away. You just see like ants walking around, and you could easily be like, yes, send that group of 100 people in there, kill that other group of 100 people over here. You'd become very directive of it. So that seems like a bad thing, but someone has to be God. Like God himself has to be God. Like you have to be willing to make those decisions. And I think this is ultimately what...
There's a presumption that God, if there is one, makes that kind of decision.
No, it's not. I don't mean God in that way. I'm even like a leader of a country. Like someone's going to lead. I wouldn't want to do it. You'd have to make all those kinds of decisions. At the same time, they're just decisions.
Yeah.
It just brings that whole question to light, and how difficult of a discussion it really is.
Do you remember? Did you go to the shooting range with us in Phoenix?
No.
Okay. With Pano. That's right. We had a South African friend who was visiting us, so I said, okay, we're going to go do some real American shit in Arizona. And so we went to a shooting range, and I had these friends, and they just had like all these guns. So the marshals one of the marshals was talking to us, and he was in Iraq, and he ran a M130, I think one of those. He ran the gun on one of those planes, and he was talking. He assumed that because we were shooting all these guns, we were just going to be like all on board with whatever he was talking about. And he was just talking about how he's like, yeah, man, you just take this M130 and you just make a circle around people, and then you just start going right in the center, and you just see people fucking exploding. And I was like, I wasn't actually that judgmental. I was like, this guy's been in war. His head's a bit messed up. And it was more, the thing that struck me was the distance. Again, is that you're in a ship, or you're doing it kind of through a screen or whatever you're doing, and I don't even know. And it's that distance that it just allows you to not connect with what's happening.
Well, think about the guys that literally flew the atomic bombs at the end of World War II. And you can get into, obviously people get into big arguments about, was it justified? Did it end the war? Like that's an impossible argument for us to have with no real historical context. But a person dropped a bomb, and like 45 minutes later, 100,000 people were killed in one bomb. Like, how, if you ask that person to walk up to the doors and do that, you obviously couldn't do that.
Yeah, you could. I mean, it just always still comes back to, not still, it does come back to this connection with food, because I think if you were to be responsible for all the death required just to be alive, you might be just a tiny bit more sensitive or receptive to life in general. I think like the first time I had the experience of when I spearfished in LA for the first time, and I had to kill the fish, and because you've got them on your belt, you don't just put them in water and take them home and kill them or whatever. You kind of have to do it right there. So you put the knife through the head of the fish, and it was like a rush of adrenaline that gave me this feeling of being primal, like this is in my nature to have to do this. Mm-hmm. So there was a positive feeling of it, and an utterly like not fear. It's hard to describe. It's like a regretful feeling of it. Like I'm taking this life, and so both of those are two kind of opposite emotions at the same time, and stayed with me for weeks thinking about having to put a knife through the fish's head. And that Ralph Waldo Emerson has a quote. He said something like, "However distant the slaughterhouse, there is complicity." And whether he was against or he ate meat, I can't remember if he's like a vegetarian or not. But like, regardless, there is complicity in everything that we take part of. We just aren't connected to it because we're not sensitive.
It obviously applies to war too.
Yeah,
and
literally everything. The interconnectedness of everything is we're just not aware of it. We're not privy to it.
Yeah, but what's weirder than killing one fish is when you use live bait, because you stick a hook through their nose and you let them think they're getting away for 20 minutes. Yeah. You know, but then I hooked one of these fish, and then it was swimming around, and I ripped it off or something like that, or it got ripped in half. I was like, Jesus Christ! It's going to go to waste, is what I thought. Half a second, this seal just, you see, nothing goes to waste.
Yeah,
it's the circle of life.
Yeah, man.
But you have to touch the circle of life occasionally. You can't just say that as a word, because people do that and then go eat like grocery store factory farmed meat and say, "Oh, it's the circle of life." Well, it's like, yeah. Nothing is wasted, but do have some consideration of that properly.
And also the experience needs to be novel, or you need to experience it novelly of your own volition in order for it to have an impact, because you'll get used to anything. So you need to bring that kind of sensation of freshness, or of new experience, or of reality, whatever you want to call it, to whatever you're doing, because it'll become familiar instantly. That song Familiarity for me is about that.
What
the Punch
song
Brothers
is that?
song. It's about the inevitability of familiarity.
On the flip side of all this, my wife Michelle was at Costco the other day getting some blueberries, and there's a woman in line. She was telling me the story next to her getting some blueberries, and I guess they had a bit of dirt on them. And the woman was talking. She's like, "What's that on the blueberries?" And Michelle was like, "I think it's just a bit of dirt. They probably just didn't get rinsed." Probably. She's like, "Oh no, I can't do that." And she didn't buy the blueberries because there was dirt on them. And I know, like, we've all got our level of squeamishness. Yeah. Like, if I see certain worms on lettuce, I'm like, I don't really feel like even washing it and dealing with it. Yeah. But when you see the extreme of it, where people like really expect that food comes out of some 3D printer or something.
Yeah, we ate the FYI. We eat everything that we ever Pernilla.
Yeah, I mean, look, I generally agree with that. Like, sport hunting for trophies does seem absurd.
Weird.
At the same time, I bet you 90% of you are wearing fashionable leather clothing. So you were killing animals for like fashion. So it's like it's literally just all arbitrary. I think someone said that morality is always discovered through experience on the comments there. I think that's perhaps a good way of looking at it. Like, you have the experience.
Yeah.
You find your line and try and find it inside yourself. And that will probably be the closest you can get to some kind of truth of it.
Yeah, as opposed to taking kind of ready-made some sort of prescription or social norm that has been given to you. I think that, that's basically, I agree with that. Personally, Bean Burb has not worn leather. Well, you're definitely getting into heaven then.
Yeah,
maybe you just haven't found the right jacket, Bean Burb.
Where I'm at, where you meet a lot of people that are ranching or farming or hunters and this and that. And for the most part, interacting with them feels way more natural and honest. Like they have had the experience of more essential life, and so they're not in denial about it.
Yeah.
And when I was a teenager, I made that documentary about vegetarianism for school for film and video, and I was like quite a proselytizer and like quite self-righteous about getting people to go vegetarian. But at the same time, it was quite interesting because most of the people that I interviewed and talked to were completely oblivious. Like most of them were to the point almost they didn't know a hamburger came from a cow type of thing. Like, it was just it was just a crazy disconnect. But then you also meet people that are vegetarian or vegan, and they still have no connection to any type of food or any like they've never grown a vegetable. They don't know how much death goes into like just that vegetable. And so there's this wall of it's not dishonesty, it's just kind of delusion or denial as to what it takes for a person to or a family to live or for the world to exist. It's just an enormous amount of
a certain
reciprocal
part of that
death.
wall is necessary because if you went through life as a complete empath, which is one of those words everyone throws around, but if you literally felt empathy for everything and everyone around you, you would be crippled. You would not be able to, you'd sit in your chair going, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So you have to have some of these disconnects in order to operate in the world.
Do you remember?
But that's what it is. I think the people that have more of that, that like trauma when they see something, when they experience or are faced with having to do something like that, it's because they haven't had any experience with it in the past.
Yeah, and it's it's an imagination that they're not like Emerson through complicity involved in it. But do you remember that person eating at Real Food Daily in LA? No. Like this is probably like 15 years ago. We went to Real Food Daily, and it was like a popular vegan restaurant at the time. I think it's still around there, right?
Yeah,
it was like it was actually really good stuff. But you know, so I remember seeing someone show up, and they brought their own cutlery, and they kind of like unwrapped it, and they kind of didn't touch anything. So they're obviously germaphobe or hypochondriac, or it's related to the veganism type of thing. But it was this. Every single aspect of their decisions seemed like it was coming from the emotion of repulsion. Yeah. And that's, I think that the obsession with food and all this stuff, even a lot of morality is confused for the emotion of repulsion. You're feeling repulsed by something. That's not morality. That may be related, but
an interesting thing I heard about that sort of thing, because it is quite prevalent with vegans and vegetarians. And I say we were all vegan, all of Congress was vegan for 6 or 7 years, and none of us still it remains vegan. But I forget who was saying this. There's an interesting psychological idea of it being connected in some ways to depression, not veganism, but to this idea of not wanting to touch any life or harm any life. It becomes like this way of you trying to like control every aspect of your life because you're not feeling like your life is actually justified. Mm-hmm. Because if you lead a life that you internally feel basically like, oh, I'm not doing anything worthwhile for yourself, I don't mean for society, for yourself, then a way to get out of that is to tell yourself, well, at least I'm doing good things. Like I'm not eating meat, or I'm not driving a big truck to, burning fossil fuel and that sort of thing. So a lot of like internal feelings of lack of self-esteem based on the fact of not actually working and putting effort into your own life go outwards then and get pushed into like this hyper vigilant, like militant vegetarianism. I'm not picking on vegetarians, like any particular thing that people attach themselves to, because you're basically saying like, I'm not really working on myself, so I'm going to be angry about these external things, and that will be filling in for the fact that I'm doing that. As opposed to the other idea to say, like, I'm a human being. I exist on an earth where life has to be taken in order for me to exist in some form or another. You have to kill to eat. You have to partake in the cycle of it, and coming to terms with that,
the way I would put it is that if you are happy with what you're producing, you're less concerned with what you're consuming. And that's,
Right, yeah.
but that's very sympathetic or empathetic to people, anyone who feels that way, because I felt that way most of my life. Like,
Yeah, 100% agree. I think it's a deep thing to feel like you're given a gift, a gratitude of existence, let's call it. And to sustain your existence, other existences have to pay and suffer in a sense. So what are you doing with that? And if you're not doing anything worthwhile, and again, I don't mean worthwhile in some societal sense. You, as an individual, have a sense inside yourself of what's worthwhile, then it's very hard to justify the taking of other existences to do that. Like if I eat a block of cheese that came from an animal, you think about like the effort that went into that. Dylan's seeing this entire cycle to grow a seed into a seedling. It gets planted. A cow eats it. It turns into a fucking cow through this cycle, and you take it, and then you're going to do what with it? It's a real important question, I think, to meditate on occasionally. And then, eat a fucking burger or whatever you want to eat.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad we shared space on this topic.
Just back to Pernilla. She says, again, kill moose, eat moose, make clothes from moose, don't taxidermy the aforementioned
basically
moose.
agree with that.
Yeah, generally I agree with you, but also, like, what kind of clothes? Can I make fancy clothes? Can I make a hat that's got, like, 2 layers of extra fur on it from the moose? It's a deep question.
I agree with you, Pernilla. I've also met people who have trophy hunted who I didn't think were bad people. And they came, like this dude I know from Louisiana who does crawfish and rice farming. They trade off stuff like that. And they kill alligators because they're there. They eat them there. Yeah. But he wants to go to South Africa to go kill a crocodile. Now, I think it's weird. I would never want to do that. I would never want to go kill something. It's just weird to me.
Also, fuck crocodiles. They've been around forever.
I find it weird, but basically I just have to accept that, first of all, it's just not a big deal to him. In the way that I kill the fly, he's willing to kill the crocodile and then have this cool thing on his wall, right? It's not like, he just doesn't feel the same way that I feel, and I don't think he's a bad person for doing that. It's just a different way of being.
Pernilla's still trying to rationalize this moose. Make clothes from the parts of moose that are left over after the rest of the moose is eaten. Again, I don't disagree with you. You're kind of preaching to the choir here. I'm just saying, think about all the things. It's what we're talking about ultimately is the question of necessity, and that is only a question I think that you as an individual can answer for yourself.
It's only a question you can answer if you have a direction you're trying to go in.
Right.
Otherwise, there is no. Necessity is a meaningless word.
Which is why I recommend nihilism, because then everything's necessary or unnecessary.
Right.
All right. Well, that was deep.
Deep thoughts.
Science.
Deep thoughts.
Religion. Music.
Deep thoughts.
Physics. Artificial intelligence. NPR.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Deep thoughts.
What about raccoon hats? It's weird to me that people make raccoon hats.
Little Pump 17 said that on Twitch. It is weird. It's also because it looks silly.
Right, yeah.
Like someone wearing a leather jacket. If it
Maybe it's
had,
because the raccoons
if it
look
had a
like,
little cow's face on it, you'd think that was funny too.
I think it's because they look like little robbers. So they're trying to warn the other little robbers out there.
It's the tail. It just looks like a little rat tail.
Yeah. Well, they were probably, in cold times, right? You keep your head warm.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than fur. I think even it's only recently that like synthetic cold weather has gotten. Yeah, they still use down, like goose feathers, and that's not a fun process for the geese, even if they don't kill them.
I'll tell you, dude, do you know how fucking hard I'm getting into heaven, dude? I got recycled down in my comforter. I'm going straight to heaven.
And on that note, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll be back next week. And I know we keep promising this, but we are going to get back to a couple music streams during the week, working in the studio here, and then also breaking down songs that we've already released. Support us if you want to on the Patreon or subscribe here on Twitch. And then this podcast will be up later on today or tomorrow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that sort of thing. We'll see you guys next week. Good evening and good night.
See ya.